harmony and understanding. How's it go? Something in joy abounding. Mystic crystal revelations. Is this the spawning of the Age of Aquarius, friends? No, I mean the criterion offered in that song from the musical Hair, which is what? When the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars. So, first of all, it would be Mars aligning with Jupiter, typically, because it is good grammar to speak the name of the faster moving planet first. What do you mean Jupiter is aligned with Mars, or Mars is aligned with Jupiter? Conjunction? Opposition? Trine? Must it be a square? If so, the dexter or the sinister square, right? We don't have enough information from that song. Dare I say that Mars and Jupiter are always aligned in one way or another. You know, in the rules of classical astrology, that may not be true. Anyway, the moon is in the 7th house once a day, everywhere on Earth. And the moon is in the 7th house somewhere on Earth right now and always. So the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars. That's not going to be the criterion that works for us. For me, the criterion is pretty clearly described by Jesus Christ, who, when encouraged to publicly blaspheme so that his crucifixion could be justified, said, "Yes, I am the Son of the Beloved, and you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven and sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One." That, for me, is actually a very clear astronomical description of this turning of the ages that you and I incarnated to dance through, and have it dance through us, for we are agents of the changes. All right. Anyway, tale for another time, but I will show how that code is actually painted on the Capitol Dome in Washington, D.C. For now, I'm going to tell you that yesterday I bought an iPhone. So what? Well, I think maybe we'll have time, I'm not sure, for me to get to some of my discomforts around that, and how even those discomforts might agree with this idea that we have already spawned into the Aquarian age, or they might actually suggest that we have not. I do like to contradict myself, and anybody who chooses to name themselves Gemini better be okay with such challenges. So it's been a long time coming to buy a new phone. My screen has been cracked and all the things, and I've literally been like cutting my fingers on the phone, which, by the way, I'm on too much. Now, there was an interesting prophecy spoken by Rudolf Steiner long ago, which went something like, you will know that human consciousness is being taken over by alien forces. Again, these are not Steiner's words, but to get the point across, maybe I should say, non-human forces, when everyone's walking around looking down and staring at little boxes. But let's not be in that space right now either. Let's talk about why I feel that my iPhone purchase experience yesterday was clear evidence that I'm living in the age. And let me actually, even before I go there, share why, instead of singing "This is the dawning of the Age of Aquarius," I sing "This is the spawning of the Age of Aquarius." So, to really understand the astrological ages, you must understand sacred astronomy, and you must also learn to embrace the very real astronomy of the tropical zodiac, which can be a difficult thing to do because the tropical zodiac and tropical astrology and astrologers are consistently under attack by the rationalist, materialist scientists, astronomers of our day and age, as well as by sidereal astrologers who will simply say that, hey, look, your signs don't align with the constellations like they used to, and that is true. So for example, I was born with the sun in Scorpio, first degree of Scorpio, October 24th, 1975, 7:39 p.m., Boston, Massachusetts. Now you know everything about me. And in the tropical zodiac, which I will say is Earth zodiac, the sun was in the very first degree of Scorpio at the time of my birth, 56 arc minutes of Scorpio, according to our math. Most sidereal zodiacs, actually all sidereal zodiacs that I've seen or that are commonly used, would place my sun in the sidereal sign of Libra. However, the sun when I was born was aligned with the constellation that the astronomers call Virgo. Now, I was trained to call constellations of the zodiac constellations that embrace the annual travel of the sun by names like Priestess, Scales, Scorpion, and Archer to differentiate them from signs by which we use names like Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius, because constellations and signs are and have always been very different things. And we've known about this for literally thousands of years, and it's been a long-standing debate in astrology. Once you learn to see the beautiful, elegant, and dare I even say simple, very real astronomy of the tropical signs, you will learn that, like so many sacred systems of ancient wisdom traditions, the tropical zodiac is directionally aligned. It is definitely not constellational. It is not seasonal, or else we would have to flip the signs between California and Peru. And even the signs should work differently between London and Honolulu, right? Even though both of those places are northern hemisphere, they have significantly different seasonal experiences throughout the course of the year, right? The tropical zodiac is not seasonal. I mean, even if it was and it only worked for temperate northern hemisphere according to some seasonal focus, why in the heavens would you project whatever you describe for the sun in Leo onto the moon when the moon's in Leo? A Leo moon, which will happen very soon, does not make the middle of summertime, right? Only the sun in Leo for northern hemisphere experience. The tropical zodiac is not seasonal, but it does result from the same astronomy that the seasons themselves result from, which is simply the interface between the ecliptic, that's the path of the sun through Earth sky. Why? Because it's the path that our planet describes in our annual orbit of the light. So the ecliptic is the plane of the year, and the equator, which is the plane of the day, the plane of Earth's daily rotation. So the tropical zodiac is based on the interface of the planes of year and day, which intersect in two places called the equinox points, 0 degrees tropical Aries and 0 degrees tropical Libra. 0 degrees tropical Cancer is directly above Earth's Tropic of Cancer. Why? Because Earth's North Pole leans towards that degree of that sign, or that cusp of Cancer and Gemini. Earth's North Pole, called North, why? It literally describes and defines and frankly creates the cardinal direction. So Earth's cardinal directions are aligned with the cardinal cusps of the tropical signs, right? 0 Cancer is due north of the center of Earth, where we all connect. 0 Capricorn is where Earth's south pole leans towards in every moment of forever. 0 Capricorn, cardinal south, cardinal Libra, cardinal west. It's not west of New York or San Francisco. Those are different things. It is west, due west of the center of Earth, where we are all one, and 0 Aries is due east. 0 tropical Aries. That cusp of that cardinal sign is aligned with the cardinal direction east for the entire Earth. And that means you and me and the squirrels and the bees and the trees. And this is why 0 degrees tropical Aries, not sidereal Aries, not constellational Ram. This is why 0 degrees tropical Aries works like a global ascendant, because east is the place of new beginnings. Do you feel that? And if you don't, go watch the sunrise or sit out during nighttime and watch the eastern side of the sky, where you will consistently see stars born from beneath the ground. Okay. This is important if you want to understand something about the turning of the ages. So people are saying, be careful while you're driving. Maybe don't type, so there's stuff for me to read. Do you know? I do appreciate that. You will notice that I am not looking at the screen unless the car is stopped. Somebody writes, the Lakota tradition, we believe in linear time. Are you trying to say that you believe in cyclical time? Or that there's a start point and an end point? Or what do you mean by that? I will say that in the Lakota tradition, and in the Lakota star knowledge at least, that which has been made exoteric, much thanks to the work of Ronald Goodman, who sat with many elders of the Lakota wisdom tradition, Dakota, I should say, wisdom traditions, in places like sorry, some weird stuff's going on out there. Anyway, sat with Lakota elders, right? So we have some understanding of Lakota star knowledge, including that image of the sacred hoop, which is another crossing in the heavens. There's a sacred hoop on the earth, as above so below, but in the heavens, a crossing of the plane of the year, the ecliptic, with the Milky Way plane. And that has so much to do with that prophecy from Christ that I spoke before, and the painting on the dome of the US Capitol building where George Washington has experienced apotheosis, and on we can go. This is at the core of my work, as it has been for my first teacher, Daniel Jamario, who showed me so many of these things, and many more have been coming in for me as I've been studying this thing over time. Okay, so back to the tropical zodiac. Let me just speak about quickly, there's 3 zodiacs. There's 3 zodiacal cosmologies. One would be constellational, right? And so, as I shared before, the sun was born, though we could never see the stars that host the sun's travel, and this is why the original zodiacs were lunar. So let me go there. I was born with the moon at 25 degrees tropical Gemini. Now, anyone out looking at the moon at the time of my birth would say, wait a second, that moon is in the horns of the bull. The moon when I was born is actually in the sacred hoop of stars, and it's very close to one of the bull's horns called Elnath. No, El Haka, the other horn, is the one that hosted the travel of the moon in the moment of my birth. Now that's something clouds allow, and you can actually see with your eyes, right? We can never see the stars that host the travel of the sun. That's an important thing to understand if you want to embody your astrology. So siderealists or constellationalists would say, dude, that's a bull moon. Why in the heavens would you call that Gemini? That's ridiculous. Right now, Did the Lakota see that constellation as a bull? No. That was, I was about to say elk, but you know what? That's not true. The antlers of the elk are the constellation that the Western tradition describes as the fishes. And so you might know as Pisces. Again, I use terms like Pisces to describe signs and terms like fishes to describe constellations, and they're different things. And just consider the very truth that those same stars, which were described in the Greco-Roman tradition as the fishes, which reaches back to Babylon in a sense, but for a time in Babylon, they were the two rivers, later a fish and a dove. For the Greeks, two fishes, right? And that was brought by the Greeks to Egypt and not the other way around, or so it would seem. History is quite murky. Now, you might hear a little bit of the fishes when I say, is this the spawning of the Age of Aquarius? And there's a reason for this. In the Lakota star knowledge, we are shown that that same shape of the fishes were known as elk. And I could go on and on like this, but just understand the very important truth that constellations are arbitrary. First of all, they're not celestial, they are terrestrial. Stars are celestial, so the constellations are made up of celestial objects, but it's somebody on Earth connecting the dots. Well, who gets to connect the dots? Right? Which culture? Understand that constellations themselves are entirely arbitrary. That doesn't make them right or wrong, but they are absolutely arbitrary. And if you're defining your signs based upon constellations alone, know that you are trapping that description within the efforts of one cultural vision, right? That doesn't, again, say right or wrong, but know the framework of where you're coming from, yes? Sidereal means of the stars. So this second zodiacal cosmology that we will speak about is sidereal. In this type of zodiac framework, you seek geometry. You want equal signs. You divide the wheel of the year, the sun's path, and for the most part that of the planets, because our solar system is relatively flat. This is the heart of the zodiac band. In all three of these cosmologies, the path of the sun, which we call the ecliptic. So the tradition has long divided that circle into 12 equal slices of 30 degrees each, right? These would be zodiac signs. Sidereal means, again, of the stars. Now, 12 equal divisions of the ecliptic could never match the constellations of the zodiac, the constellation that hosts the sun's path, and for the most part the planets, because our solar system is relatively flat. Why? Because the zodiac constellations vary significantly in size. The mighty Ram, about 15 degrees of ecliptic longitude. I should say celestial longitude, because the stars of the Ram are not on the ecliptic plane, but rather slightly north of the ecliptic. The demure priestess, 47 degrees of ecliptic arc, right? So you could never match a 12 equal sign zodiac to the constellations that embrace the ecliptic plane. And this is why sidereal zodiacs differ from constellational zodiacs, okay? And it's also like the seed of, dare I say, the rotten fruit of 13 sign cosmologies. And because, well, I mean, you can do anything you want. Just don't claim something has ancient roots when it clearly does not. That thing was seeded in 1929, and I don't need to be there now. Or else I might crash this car. All right, anyway, sidereal zodiacs are more aligned to the constellations depending upon which star you choose as your prime fiducial. Where do you begin the division of the circle into 12 equal signs? And there's been much debate. Sidereal zodiacs also entirely arbitrary, because you need to pick a starting point and then divide the circle into 12 from there. This doesn't make them wrong or right. but there's been a lot of debate. You can find that there's many sidereal zodiacs you can choose from on the astrology softwares. In India, this is called Ayam Namsha. There's more to it than just that, but you know, some look at Chitra, which in the West is called Spica or Spica, is like the true origin for 0 Libra. Well, the astronomers call that Alpha Virgo, right? So any equal 12 sign division of the wheel will not map the very unequal constellations which embrace the ecliptic plane. So constellational framework and sidereal framework are not the same. Now, the tropical zodiac is the only one of these 3 that is not arbitrary. Besides the truth that you could argue 12 signs, 12 equal divisions is itself arbitrary. Now, I would suggest that the harmonic series of music, that the sacred geometry that many of us call the seed of life, and to a much lesser extent, the astronomy of sun, moon, and earth show us clearly that creation creates in 12s, and therefore this is not arbitrary at all. But you can hear maybe I'm trying to find data to support my argument, which may or may not be data, right? And even in like the harmonic series, which clearly shows 12ness in musical harmony, it's not precisely equal divisions of 12. Those of you who have researched equal temperament versus other models of temperament have seen this. You can't play Indian music on a fixed string, 12-tone instrument. Why? Because they're using scales that are much more interesting with many more notes than 12, and I could go on in that way too, but this is not the time for that. I want to tell you about why this iPhone experience might tell me that I've already spawned into the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Okay, so why did I need to describe all of that? Well, to analyze and understand the astronomical framework of the turning of the ages, at least according to the tradition, we are going to look at the east point. What is the east point? Again, it is the point that is due east of the center of Earth. It is 0 degrees tropical Aries. If you wanted to speak of this in modern astronomical terms, it's the origin point for celestial longitude. That's an angular measurement along the ecliptic plane, the path of the sun, from that point that is due east of the center of the Earth, that astronomers call the vernal equinox point, which is very hemispheric because in the southern hemisphere, that's autumnal, not vernal, which means spring. When the sun is there, and it's always there whether the sun is there or not. A better name would be the east point, and in astronomy, we've long called this 0 degrees tropical Aries. I mean, for thousands of years. Since Ptolemy and likely before, and even like earlier astrologies, which were constellational and later sidereal, the equinox points were very clearly tracked and defined, and the precession of these points was witnessed long before Hipparchus, who's often given credit for being the one to discover precession. What is precession? It's based upon the 3rd motion of Earth. So the first 2 are Earth's rotation, our daily motion. The second is Earth's annual orbit about the sun. Now that's different planes. Daily rotation, equator, annual orbit, ecliptic. And the ecliptic crosses the equator northward at the 0 degrees tropical Aries point, which modern astrology describes and long has been described as the vernal equinox point. And it is the point, though many do not understand this, I find, that is due east of the center of Earth. It is the origin point for both celestial longitude and angular measurement along the ecliptic, and right ascension and angular measurement along the celestial equator. Okay, so whether I want to use the plane of the year, ecliptic, as my, I guess, x-axis in my coordinate system, or if I want to use the celestial equator, the plane of the day, as that axis, right? That's the difference between celestial longitude or zodiac degrees and right ascension. Either way, modern astrology, though they will ridicule the tropical zodiac, they measure those from the point that we tropical astrologers know at 0 degrees tropical Aries, all right? Now, again, that point is due east of the center of the Earth. It's a crossing of these two planes. It is in no way arbitrary. And it doesn't mean it's the right one or the wrong one. I happen to believe it's the right one for this reason, but I think many of them are right. I love constellations. I bring them into readings with folks. I think that the constellations themselves, and I like to find constellational stories from many traditions. I believe they are contributing to our energetic experience as earthlings, that they have something to do with our own personal myths. I certainly believe that stars, though so far away, have energetic influence. But for me, the signs, they emanate from something at the center of the earth outward, and they are aligned to Gaia's spine, or the world tree, our rotational axis, which defines Earth's cardinal directions. Constellational zodiacs, arbitrary, cultural. Sidereal zodiacs, well, which star do you begin with? Arbitrary. Doesn't make them wrong. Tropical zodiac, in no way arbitrary. Exactly precise. Again, the only thing that would make it arbitrary is, why do you slice it into 12? Why not 10? Why not 42? Why not have two signs called north and south, which kind of we do. Anyway, the way that the turning of the ages works, the way that it's typically described, and there's a different framework that actually will let us know that it's happening in our time. And I'm not going to be able to do that now because I like to show that. But typically, we're tracking the east point, the 0 degrees tropical Aries point, as it precesses through the constellations or through the sidereal signs. And again, because constellations vary significantly in size, constellational zodiac, sidereal zodiac are different things. If you've studied this and you favor equal amount of times for the astrological ages, like the age of Aries, the age of Pisces, the age of Aquarius, or maybe I should say the age of the ram, the age of the fishes, the age of the water bearer. I don't think so. If you favor equal ages, then this means 12 equal signs, and that is not constellational, that is sidereal. So really, when we're looking at the turning of the ages, if you favor, as I do, an equal age framework, what you're looking at is the precession of the sidereal signs, of the tropical signs through the sidereal signs, as if there's two 12-toothed gears that are interfacing with one another. Why do I share all of this? Because if indeed we believe we are in the age of Aquarius, or that it has dawned, then it offers an opportunity for us to rectify a sidereal zodiac. In other words, for us to choose an accurate prime fiducial. What is the prime fiducial? It is the star that you choose to begin your sidereal divisions of the ecliptic into 12 equal slices with. Is it Spica? Is it Regulus? Is it the Pleiades? You know, interestingly, if you chose Regulus, it aligns to the Pleiades as well. It also aligns to the galactic crosses, and that's the framework that I greatly favor. It was first imagined forth by my first teacher, Daniel Jamario, and I'm, again, adding to this and seeing so many ways in which it works, including the truth that I went into a store yesterday. Thanks, by the way, to like a really good day in business, and much of that thanks to Colette Barron Reed, who's been recommending my work in astrolocality to many, many, many people who follow her amazing work, and I'm exceptionally grateful for this. Thank you, Colette. So I had like a good day, and I was like, I'm sick of cutting my finger on this phone screen, and I'm not going to try to change the glass again, because last time I did that, I killed the computer. And I don't want to take it in, like I'm just going to get a new phone, right? Well, I'm getting a phone that projects more EMF, which is even more concerning now than it would have been 6 months ago, because that was made under pretty horrific conditions and necessitated mining of some particular materials that are becoming more and more difficult to access and are leading to all sorts of political upheaval And I could go on and on about that. I hope you also feel somewhat uncomfortable about the origin and manufacture of the parts of the technology that we utilize, okay? That's up to you. But it's not something that I don't consider. And however, here I am talking to you on an iPhone through space waves. And so you've probably had this experience in one way or another, whether it's iPhone or some other dumb phone. Wait, did they call them smart? You go into a store, you give them the money, and there's no such thing as paper anymore, right? It wasn't paper anyway, but you space zap money to them. They took my phone, they pushed some buttons, and everything on my phone had already been stored in some cloud, which is actually shot through the local internet through a satellite to some place on Earth where there's a bunch of hard drives using a lot of electricity to store this information. And then they set up the new phone, and I pushed a few buttons and gave it permission with the passcode and such. And about 20 minutes later, everything from my previous phone was space beamed onto this phone. They weren't plugged into one another. It was all happening through the prana, right? I mean, is the air the medium for the satellite beams? I don't know. What are the satellite beams themselves made of? I mean, this feels kind of ether, doesn't it? So if we use the astronomical criterion of the precession of the east point or 0 degrees tropical Aries to a star in the constellation of Aquarius, or let me say the water bearer, well, who gets to define the boundaries between that constellation and the fishes? That's a tricky thing. All right. These days, we trust the boundary divisions of the International Astronomical Union. Why should I? They vehemently hate astrology and are very outspoken about how ridiculous and non-scientific astrology and astrologers are. And yet these like Ophiucan 13 sign people, they're using the IAU's constellational divisions and calling them ancient. You know, they were described in 1929. So think about what you're doing over there, people. Anyway, spinning of the Earth, primary motion, first. Orbit of the Earth, secondary motion, second. Third motion is the precession of the Earth, which is described as this wobbling of the Earth. Now, that's the experience of it, but I don't believe the cause is the way that's being taught by astronomers these days, which was first described by Isaac Newton and some contemporaries, based upon a model in which the sun does not move through space. Copernican revolution had happened. Galileo very much confirmed this. We reclaimed the knowledge that the sun is the center of the solar system, not the Earth. But then the sun was the center of the universe. No, the sun now we know is moving through space, you know, and that this movement itself might actually create this experience that causes the directions of Earth, again, defined by her rotational axis, to precess or move in a retrograde fashion through the constellations and therefore also through the sidereal signs. All right. And this is why I say the spawning of the age of Aquarius. If you look at the old myths, here are the rams, right? So let's say the age of the bull. And then there's this calf moment when the shepherd kings, the elder rams, slay 3,000 of their own people for worshiping what? A golden calf. Have you heard the story? Just after the commandments are received, one says, thou not shall kill. 3,000 people are killed. Should have maybe been 2,160 people. And if you know, you know. Why? Because above thou shalt not kill, thou shalt have no false idols, right? So why a calf? Because precession moves us from the 30th degree of the sign to the 1st degree of the sign. And then the lamb is born, who becomes the fisher king, right? So the spawning would be because the east point, 0 degrees tropical Aries, is now precessing from the early degrees of fish spawning, right, into the last degrees of Aquarius. Is this constellational? I don't believe so. I believe in equal ages. That's a belief. That's like religion, frankly. And it requires some historical research. And frankly, we can't go that far back in our historical research. It's difficult, right? But what about the present moment? I'm talking to you through like a moving vehicle. Now it's burning gas and all that, you know, it's not right now. You can tell I'm stopped. Beaming to you through space waves to a satellite that come into your local internet, you know, like that is a pretty Age of Aquarian thing, right? Now, Age of Aquarian things we would like is an equality of all humans and maybe all beings. So again, to the manufacturer of this phone that I'm speaking to you through and whatever you're receiving this message to, that is not an expression of equality. Can everyone afford something like this, right? Does the Age of Aquarius demand equality in commerce as well in human rights? Like interesting questions for us to ask and pursue. Most of us, I think, would argue that the Aquarian age is going to be quite technological. And look at the proliferation of artificial intelligence just in these last years since Pluto has ingressed tropical Aquarius. Or maybe you prefer old school. How about Jupiter conjoined Saturn at the first degree of tropical Aquarius? People will teach that this was the beginning of an air sign era of Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions. Well, they conjoined thrice on New Year's Eve 1981 and then 2 more times in the year of 1981 in the sign of Libra. That was the beginning of the air signs. That was also the beginning of personal computing, the internet, right? The internet is the most clear archetype of the Aquarian age. I think airplanes do pretty well. Certainly rocket ships, now the ones that can rocket engines coming landing, you know, so that they can be recycled. Recycling might be an Aquarian age phenomena. Like we are clearly in the Aquarian age. So I can show you a plethora of astronomical constructs that would suggest this isn't going to happen until the year 2600. Maybe even the year 3000. No, it's happening now. And just the fact that we're communicating in this way, sorry, I'm doing all the talking, that doesn't feel quite balanced and equal, does it? No. The fact that we are communicating in this way says we are in this age. And this should help us rectify a sidereal zodiac if indeed there is any truth to the astronomical framework that would suggest the energetic current of the ages will transition when zero tropical Aries moves from one sidereal sign, precessing or retrograding to, the previous sign, which would be the next sign. So from Aries to Pisces to Aquarius, sidereal. We should be able to rectify a prime fiducial for the sidereal zodiac in this regard. And I'll tell you right now, it is likely Regulus, which also means the Pleiades, which also means the galactic crosses, which, by the way, one of them is at galactic center and the other one's right in the center of the sacred hoop. I got to run to go get on a computer and space wave astrological information to somebody on another part of the world. This is the spawning of the Age of Aquarius.